There is a power within you, silent yet infinite, which asks nothing of the world and yet commands it all. Tonight, you will learn that no ally, no teacher, no earthly helper is required. Alone, you may stand and bend the universe to your desire, for the kingdom is already within. There is a stillness, a quiet sanctuary within you, where the world's clamor ceases and nothing of earth can intrude. You may have sought answers in the streets, in the voices of others, in the counsel of friends and teachers, yet all these are but shadows, reflections of what is already within. The scripture bids you, be still and know that I am God. These words are not idle, they are not to be read and forgotten. They are to be felt, to be entered, to be made your dwelling. The stillness is not the absence of action, nor is it the void of engagement. It is the recognition of the eternal presence that animates all things, the consciousness that underlies every movement, every sound, every form. When you enter this place, you stand in the quiet of creation itself, and in that quiet, you perceive the great secret that the universe is already yours, that all things exist in readiness, awaiting the recognition of your consciousness to be revealed. There is no need to seek elsewhere. The power that brings the mountains to move, the seas to calm, the fortunes to appear, is already in you, waiting for your acknowledgement, waiting for the silence of your attention to awaken it. Imagine, if you will, a vast treasury, its doors closed and guarded by no one, for no key is needed. The treasures are not hidden from you, but from your own awareness. The world tells you to strive, to petition, to labor endlessly, yet the scripture reveals a different path. Stillness is the gateway, not the effort. Knowing is the command, not the pleading. To know is to possess. To feel the presence of that which is unseen is to call it into form. And as you dwell in that stillness, you begin to understand that the outer is but a reflection of the inner. Your world shifts not by the approval of others, not by the accumulation of coins or accolades, but by the quiet certainty of what you recognize as true within yourself. The currents of life flow toward your assumption, and wherever you place your consciousness, reality bends to meet it. Consider for a moment the law that governs all creation, invisible, immutable, eternal. It is not written in books, it is not confined to temples or courts. It is the law of consciousness, the law that what is assumed as true becomes your world. If you dwell upon lack, if you entertain the notion that you are dependent upon external circumstance, you call into being a world that reflects limitation. Yet if you assume your fulfillment, if you quietly inhabit the state of your wish already realized, the universe must obey. There is no partiality in this law. It does not ask for argument or negotiation. It bends obediently to the vibration of your inner reality. Many believe that the outer must dictate the inner, that events must occur before satisfaction can be felt, that fortune must come before joy can be experienced. This is a reversal of the divine order. The outer is but a mirror, it is faithful, honoring, and it reveals only what the mind has already assumed. To do it alone is to recognize that your inner act of assumption is sovereign. No friend, no teacher, no circumstance can impart what you can assume in solitude. When you accept this, you free yourself from the tyranny of evidence, from the slavery of appearances, and you step into the boundless authority of your own consciousness. The inner law is simple, yet infinitely potent. It is the law of identity. What you identify with, what you embrace as true in the depths of your feeling, becomes your tangible world. To dwell in the feeling of already being, already having, already done, is to engage the law that governs all things. You may look around and see the world contrary to your desire, yet that outward contradiction is of no consequence. The law is unseen, it works silently, and it honors only what you have assumed. When you feel the reality of your desire, you do not summon it from elsewhere, you awaken it from within, and it manifests in time and circumstance with the inevitability of dawn. Now, let the mind wander into the fertile silence and picture the state you would inhabit if your desire were fulfilled. See it vividly. See it completely, as if your life already bears its mark. Let every sense participate. Hear the sounds, feel the textures, inhale the subtle fragrance of the scene. Perceive the light as it touches all things. Imagination is the instrument of reality. It is the forge upon which the world is molded. To do it alone is to recognize that nothing external can surpass this inner power. You may sit in your room, your hands empty, your eyes closed, and yet within you the universe is made manifest. In this solitary act, all things converge. You are both the knower and the known, the creator and the creation, the dreamer and the dream. This vision is not fantasy, it is prophecy lived in consciousness. When you inhabit it with feeling, with totality, it moves from the unseen into the realm of form. The outer circumstance merely announces what the inner state has decreed. There is a rhythm to this process, a cadence that mirrors the heartbeat of the universe. Every thought, every feeling, every assumption sends a vibration into the infinite, and the infinite returns it multiplied in the world of form. To dwell alone, to assume fully, to feel completely, is to participate consciously in this sacred rhythm. The outer world, with all its seeming contradictions, becomes irrelevant, for it is the echo of your own inner melody. You may witness lack and limitation, yet if within you reigns the state of fulfillment, the outer must eventually comply. This is the mystical principle, the law that is hidden in plain sight within every scripture, within every parable. The kingdom of God is not elsewhere, it is within, and it is responsive to your assumption. To know this is liberation, to feel it is power, to act upon it in the silence of your own consciousness is creation itself. Even as you sit alone, consider the authority you possess. You need no petition, no advocate, no guarantor. All that is required is your own acceptance, your own assumption. Faith in others is never necessary when faith in yourself is total. To do it alone is not an act of pride, but of recognition that all reality bows to the consciousness that claims it. The outer world may scoff, resist, or delay, yet these are but shadows upon the wall. Your inner certainty is the light that casts and dispels them. The scripture, the eternal word, is not idle, it speaks to you now. In this quiet chamber of the mind, still yourself, recognize your power, assume your fulfillment. Herein lies the secret of all manifestation. Herein lies the truth that has been whispered through the ages, concealed in parable and symbol. All that you desire is already yours, awaiting only the recognition of your consciousness. There is a continuity, an unbroken stream between your imagination and the world you inhabit. Every feeling, every assumption, every inward act of recognition pours into the unseen and calls forth its counterpart. To do it alone is to participate fully in this divine process, unimpeded by opinion, unaltered by circumstance, uncorrupted by distraction. The inner law is absolute. What you assume to be true becomes the fabric of your life. To doubt this is to doubt the source of life itself. To embrace it is to step into the sovereignty of your own being, where all things are possible because they are already true within. And as you dwell in this awareness, as you allow the quiet certainty of your own assumption to envelop you, you begin to sense the profound elegance of creation. It is simple, it is perfect, and it responds only to the state of consciousness in which it finds itself recognized. Feel now the weight of this truth. You may be alone in the world, but within, you are accompanied by the fullness of the universe. There is no need for external confirmation, no requirement for outside approval, no labor in the streets or markets. What is required is your inner act, sustained and complete, felt as reality, lived as present, assumed as fact. The outer world will align in time, as inevitably as the morning follows the night. For reality obeys not appearances, but the vibrational authority of consciousness. You are the unseen master of your life. Your solitude is not a limitation, it is a privilege. Here, in this sacred space, you claim and create, you envision and realize, you recognize and possess. The law is simple, yet its effects are profound. Assume, dwell, feel, and all that you have imagined flows forth to meet you, faithful and exact. To do it alone is to recognize that the kingdom of God, the creative intelligence, the eternal presence does not wait for others. It does not negotiate or bargain. It is silent, it is constant, and it is infinitely responsive to your act of recognition. Every scripture, every parable, every teaching of the wise echoes this principle. The unseen precedes the seen, the inner shapes the outer, and the solitary consciousness of man is sufficient to bring forth all that it assumes. You are never truly without support, for support exists in consciousness itself. You are never powerless, for power resides in the unseen recognition of your desire. And as you dwell in this truth, as you feel it deep within, as you let it permeate your imagination and saturate your being, you understand the profound elegance of the law. You need nothing but your own assumption, your own feeling, your own inner knowing to bring forth all things into manifestation. Every moment spent in this stillness, every act of assumption embraced in solitude, every feeling of fulfillment entertained within strengthens the bridge between the unseen and the seen. The currents of life align to your inner state. The doors of reality swing open without touch, without effort, and the treasures of your desire arrive, not through labor, not through plea, but through the simple, profound, unshakable act of knowing. To do it alone is not to be lonely, it is to be powerful beyond measure, to be the silent architect of your destiny, to inhabit fully the timeless truth that all creation responds to consciousness. You may now begin to feel it, the quiet assurance, the subtle thrill, the deep settling of certainty that all is already yours and all must come to you in its appointed time, because you have assumed it, because you have entered the stillness, because you recognize the unseen as absolute, and you trust completely that the outer will follow the inner without fail, without delay, without error. The law is faithful. The inner power is inexhaustible. The universe bows in obedience to your consciousness. And so alone you possess all, for the unseen honors only what you accept as true and nothing more. Close your eyes and let the world fall away, for the reality you seek exists not in the streets, not in the hands of others, not in the shifting circumstances of life, but in the sanctuary of your own imagination. This inner theater is vast and infinite, unbound by walls, time, or limitation. Here, every scene you construct is real, and every feeling you entertain is sacred. Imagine yourself walking alone through a garden of your own creation, the sun casting its gentle light, the fragrance of flowers filling the air, the soft murmur of a stream reaching your ears. Every detail is vivid, alive, and complete. You feel the texture of the grass beneath your feet, the warmth of the sun upon your skin, the quiet assurance of your own presence as sovereign. You do not need another to validate this vision, for it is wholly yours, born from the deepest chambers of consciousness where desire and knowing merge into one. The outer world may seem absent of this abundance, but that is only because it has not yet reflected the state you now inhabit. Within, the fullness is already yours, tangible, living, undeniable. Inhabit it fully, allow every sense to participate, for the imagination is not a playground of fantasy, but the laboratory of reality. As you see, hear, touch, taste, and feel, you are not dreaming, you are engaging the creative principle that precedes all form, the law that shapes all things, the quiet authority that bends the world to the vibration of your inner state. To dwell here is to act alone, yet with the power of all creation behind you, silent, faithful, honoring. Visualize now the scene of your fulfilled desire, not as it might come, but as it is already accomplished. Let the details be rich, the textures full, the sounds alive. See yourself receiving that which you have longed for, not with hesitation, not with doubt, but with the calm, unshakable assurance of one who knows the universe bends to the assumption of consciousness. Hear the voices, if any are present, speaking your name in acknowledgement, yet understand that they are but echoes of your inner reality, reflections of the state you hold alone. Feel the weight of the accomplishment in your hands, the warmth of satisfaction in your heart, the subtle thrill of certainty coursing through every fiber of your being. Let the imagination saturate you until it is no longer a scene you observe, but a reality you inhabit. In this solitude, the power of manifestation is pure, uncorrupted by external influence, undiluted by opinion, and unimpeded by circumstance. Here you are the sole actor and the sole witness, and in this quiet authority, all things move to your recognition. Consider a man who desired fame, who walked the streets alone, unrecognized, unacknowledged, yet every night in the quiet of his room, he assumed the state of being celebrated, honored, admired. He saw himself alone, yet surrounded by the aura of success, felt the applause, heard the whispers of admiration, imagined the letters of acknowledgement arriving at his door. For weeks, months, he nurtured this inner reality, never questioning its efficacy, never seeking proof, never relying on the testimony of others. And then, as if the world itself had been waiting for his recognition, a letter arrived, an opportunity manifested, a door opened without human hand guiding it. The outer reality had only mirrored what he had fully inhabited in his solitude. The streets that seemed barren, the world that seemed indifferent, were never the source of the change. The source was always within him. This is the rhythm of creation. The inner state precedes the fact, and when you dwell in that state with totality, the outer world is compelled to align. It may take the appearance of time, it may seem delayed, it may manifest in ways unexpected, yet it is faithful to the assumption, unwavering in its response to consciousness. The principle here is simple, yet profound. The outer circumstance cannot dictate the inner reality. The universe bends to the inner, not the outer. When you inhabit the state of your wish fulfilled, when you feel it, know it, and live it inwardly, the world must obey. Consider a sculptor alone in his workshop, chiseling a block of marble with vision and intention. He does not look to the public for validation. He does not wait for applause or recognition. He sees the form within the stone and allows his hand, guided by his imagination and knowledge, to bring it forth. In the same way, your imagination is the chisel, your feeling is the hand, your consciousness is the sculptor shaping reality itself. To act alone is to trust this process, to engage fully in the inner work without distraction or dependency. Every night, when the body rests and the senses grow quiet, the imagination is most potent, most malleable, most faithful to the assumptions of consciousness. This is the sacred hour where the unseen responds without obstruction, where the outer is compelled to reflect the inner state, where solitude is not emptiness, but the crucible of creation. You may sit alone in your chamber, perhaps in darkness, perhaps in stillness, and yet the world is in motion at your command. Every letter, every word, every opportunity, every encounter that you imagine fully is set into motion in the unseen. The outer world may delay, it may disguise, it may appear contrary, yet this is no resistance. It is simply the gestation period, the necessary alignment of circumstances that will ultimately reveal the reality already held in consciousness. Notice the rhythm of your own inner life, the cadence of feeling, thought, and vision. Each thought is a spark, each feeling a current, each act of imagination a river flowing toward manifestation. When you dwell alone in this sacred rhythm, you participate fully in the law of creation, unencumbered by opinion, uncorrupted by evidence, unaltered by circumstance. The inner reality is sovereign. It honors no one but itself, and it responds only to the recognition of its truth. You are, in this solitude, both the knower and the known, the actor and the witness, the dreamer and the dream. Every vibration of certainty, every pulse of feeling, every insistence upon the reality of your desire sends a signal into the infinite, and the infinite must comply. The unseen is faithful, it cannot do otherwise. It is bound by law, by rhythm, by the immutable principle that what is assumed as true is real. Let the imagination grow vivid. Let the feeling saturate the body. Let the mind dwell with unshakable certainty. Imagine the scene in every detail until it is no longer separate from you, until it is woven into the fabric of your being. Hear the voices of acknowledgement, see the signs of fulfillment, feel the textures of success, the warmth of achievement, the quiet satisfaction of recognition. Let the outer world fade into insignificance, for it is merely a mirror, a reflection, a delayed acknowledgement of what you have already claimed. You need no ally, no guide, no teacher. Your solitude is sufficient. In this quiet authority, you call forth all that you desire. Every night, every moment of stillness, you participate in the sacred act of creation, shaping the unseen into form, sculpting the currents of circumstance to match the inner reality you inhabit. Consider the fidelity of the universe. It does not argue, it does not debate, it does not question. It is bound by law, and law responds to consciousness. If you feel scarcity, the world mirrors scarcity. If you assume plenty, the world bends to plenty. If you inhabit the state of fulfillment, even in solitude, the doors swing open, the paths align, the opportunity presents itself without effort, without manipulation, without reliance on others. This is the rhythm of creation. The inner precedes the outer, the unseen governs the seen, and the solitary consciousness of man is sufficient to bring forth all things. Even as you sit alone, the fullness of your desire is within you. Every detail, every nuance, every subtlety is present in your imagination. You may feel impatience, doubt, or distraction, yet the unseen is not hindered. It moves silently, faithfully, inexorably toward the fulfillment of your inner assumption. To dwell in this state is to act alone with absolute power. You are never truly without support, for the source of creation, the divine presence, resides within, responsive to your recognition, loyal to your assumption. The world outside may seem inert, indifferent, or contrary, yet it is only a mirror reflecting the state you hold within. To inhabit the inner reality fully is to summon the outer reality without contest, without plea, without delay. Imagine now the man who nightly assumed his fame. Each evening, he entered the quiet room. Imagine the letters, the applause, the recognition. Day after day, the streets offered nothing, the world seemed silent, yet his imagination persisted. Then, inevitably, the outer caught up with the inner. A letter arrived, an opportunity presented itself, the recognition he had imagined alone became visible to the world. This is the law at work. The inner state, nurtured and assumed, compels the outer to conform. To do it alone is to honor this law fully, to trust it without reservation, to act as the sovereign of your own inner kingdom. All creation bends to the inner, all manifestation honors the assumption, all fulfillment flows to the consciousness that recognizes it as already done. Feel now the completeness of this truth. You are alone, yet infinitely accompanied. You are still, yet infinitely active. You are solitary, yet bound to all things by the law of consciousness. Every scene imagined, every feeling held, every state inhabited in this quiet authority reaches into the unseen and calls forth its reflection in the world of form. To act alone is to engage fully in this sacred process, to participate consciously in creation, to recognize the inner as the true source and the outer as faithful servant. The universe is pliable, obedient, unwavering, yet it honors only what is assumed, only what is felt, only what is known as true. You are the sculptor, the artist, the creator, the witness. In the quiet of your room, in the sanctity of your imagination, you call forth all that you desire, and the universe, faithful to law, bends to your recognition, reflecting the state you inhabit in the fullness of reality itself. Faith is not the trembling hope that something unseen might one day appear. It is the quiet, unshakable recognition that all is already accomplished, that every desire you hold, every vision you cherish, has its reality anchored in the unseen, and it awaits only the acknowledgement of your consciousness to become visible. To act in faith is not to bargain, not to plead, not to labor in frantic hope, but to enter into the state of your wish fulfilled and dwell there with the calm authority of one who knows. Even if the world contradicts you, even if evidence appears scarce or hostile, faith is the steady pulse that guides the unseen into form. The outer has no mastery over the inner, and to believe in the unseen is to command the tides of circumstance without lifting a hand. Imagine now a man who owns nothing in the eyes of the world, whose pockets are empty, whose efforts seem fruitless. Each evening he sits alone in the quiet of his chamber and assumes himself wealthy, prosperous, and fulfilled. He feels the weight of gold, the sound of coins, the warmth of abundance flowing through his being. He hears the whispers of acknowledgement, the laughter of celebration, the greetings of those who recognize his state. Though the streets may tell him otherwise, though the world may seem unresponsive, he persists. And one day, in the natural unfolding of events, the evidence arrives as if the universe itself had been waiting for his inner recognition to release it. This is the nature of faith. It does not rely on proof. It does not wait for confirmation. It is the silent authority that moves the unseen, shaping the outer to match the inner reality that has already been assumed. To act in faith is to inhabit fully the inner state that corresponds to your desire. It is not sufficient to wish. Wishing is fleeting, being uncertain, like a candle flickering in the wind. Faith is the steady flame, unwavering, luminous, and certain. It is the quiet conviction that the unseen is real, that the outer is obedient, and that nothing can resist the law of consciousness. As you dwell in this faith, you begin to notice subtle signs, not as confirmations, but as reflections of the inner reality already established. A letter arrives, a conversation opens, a path appears, yet these are not the source of fulfillment. They are but mirrors of what you already possess inwardly. Your faith, nurtured and sustained in solitude, is the instrument by which the universe moves, the key by which all doors swing open without touch, the current that carries all circumstances into alignment with your assumed state. Imagine yourself in the quiet of night, feeling fully the reality of your desire. Let your senses participate, feel the texture, hear the sounds, sense the warmth, smell the subtle fragrance of its presence. Allow yourself to inhabit it as though it were tangible, immediate, and complete. There is no need for evidence, for the inner reality suffices. The universe bends to the vibrational authority of your consciousness, and faith is the medium through which that bending occurs. Consider the power of solitude in this process. Alone, you are free from distraction, free from the doubts of others, free from the discordant opinions that seek to sway the mind. In this stillness, you may cultivate the inner state with precision, clarity, and unwavering consistency. To do it alone is not to be isolated, it is to be sovereign. It is to recognize that your inner act of assumption, sustained in faith, is sufficient to summon all things into manifestation. The outer world may seem resistant, but resistance is but the echo of your own hesitation. When faith is complete, the echo vanishes, and the outer follows the inner as inevitably as the tide follows the moon. There is a rhythm here, a cadence of creation, and to dwell in faith is to harmonize with it. Each night, each moment of quiet attention, each act of assumption sustained with feeling, strengthens the current, deepens the river, and moves the unseen toward its inevitable expression. You are the conductor of this symphony, the silent authority guiding all events to align with the state you hold within. Now, allow yourself to feel the inner authority of your own consciousness, the sovereignty that arises when you recognize the unseen as the source, the inner as the law, and the state of your desire as already accomplished. In this recognition, you move beyond the need for validation, beyond the compulsion of external circumstances, beyond the distractions of the world. You are alone, yet infinitely potent. Your faith is not a hope, it is a certainty. Your assumption is not a thought, it is a reality lived inwardly, and the universe cannot do otherwise but obey. Imagine a river, unceasing and powerful, flowing beneath the surface of the earth. Though unseen, it shapes the mountains, carves valleys, nourishes the lands. In the same way, your faith, quiet and unseen, moves all things in the world above, shaping circumstance, arranging events, aligning people, and opening doors. It does this silently, faithfully, without hesitation, without error, because it is anchored in the law of consciousness, which governs all things and bends all things to its authority. Even in moments of doubt, even when appearances seem contrary, the power of faith remains steadfast. To sustain the feeling of fulfillment in the absence of evidence is to command the universe itself. Let the imagination participate, fully see, feel, hear, touch, taste the reality of your wish fulfilled. Immerse yourself in it as though there were no separation between your consciousness and the world it shapes. This is the essence of manifestation, the vibrational authority of the inner over the outer, the unseen determining the seen, the solitary act of recognition becoming the world that is reflected back to you. Faith alone moves mountains, opens doors, and bends circumstances, for it operates in the realm where all things are already present, waiting for acknowledgement. To act alone in faith is to take full possession of this power, to recognize that no ally, no teacher, no circumstance is required, for the unseen is complete and your consciousness is sufficient to bring forth all that you desire. Now, turn your attention to the stillness of night, the quiet hours before sleep, when the outer world recedes and the senses grow dim. Here, the imagination is most potent, most malleable, most responsive to the assumption of consciousness. This is the sacred moment in which to dwell fully in the state of your fulfilled desire. Close your eyes and feel it as reality. Sense the textures, hear the sounds, smell the subtleties, taste the sweetness, and let the warmth of satisfaction flow through every fiber of your being. You are alone, yet accompanied by all creation, for the unseen flows freely in response to your inner recognition. Let this feeling saturate you until it is no longer a mere thought, but a living, breathing reality. Every night you cultivate this state, the currents of circumstance align, events conspire, doors open, and the outer becomes a faithful reflection of the inner state you have assumed. Solitude is not deprivation, it is the crucible of manifestation, the fertile ground in which all desires are planted, nurtured, and brought to fruition. The universe does not negotiate, does not hesitate, does not resist. It is bound by law, and the law responds only to consciousness. When you inhabit the state of your wish fulfilled, when you feel it fully and completely in solitude, all things must conform. A letter arrives, an opportunity presents itself, a path opens, but these are not the source. They are the effect, the reflection, the manifestation of a reality already present within. Faith is the instrument, imagination the forge, consciousness the law, and solitude the sacred chamber in which creation occurs. You are the architect, the sculptor, the artist, and the universe is the obedient medium through which your inner reality is expressed. To act alone is to act with totality, with authority, with unshakable certainty. Consider how the mind, when fully engaged in the state of fulfillment, moves silently through the currents of life, arranging events, inspiring action, and drawing circumstances into alignment. This movement is not visible, yet it is powerful beyond measure. The unseen is faithful, it honors only what is assumed, only what is felt, only what is fully known as true. When you dwell in faith, you create a reality that the outer world cannot resist. Even in apparent delay, even in seeming contradiction, the inner law is at work orchestrating, arranging, and bringing all things into perfect timing. To do it alone is to recognize this invisible rhythm, to align with it consciously, to participate fully in the creative act without distraction or reliance upon others. Every night, every moment of quiet attention, every act of assumption sustained with feeling strengthens this current. Your consciousness flows outward, touching every circumstance, aligning every event, bending all things toward the reality you hold within. You are alone, yet infinitely powerful. The outer world may appear inert, indifferent, or unresponsive, but this is only a reflection of what is held within. To inhabit the state of fulfillment is to compel the outer to obey, to manifest, to conform. There is no other force, no other authority, no other power required. Solitude is not deprivation, it is the laboratory of creation, the chamber of sovereignty, the crucible in which the infinite potential of the unseen becomes the tangible reality of the world. As you settle into this awareness, you may feel a quiet thrill, a subtle warmth, a deep and abiding assurance that all is accomplished, that every desire, every vision, every wish is already present in the unseen and merely awaits your acknowledgement. This acknowledgement is not a fleeting thought, nor a hope, nor a desire. It is a full inhabitation, a living, breathing certainty that the outer must conform. To act in faith, to feel, to imagine, to dwell in the state of your wish fulfilled, is to summon reality itself, to call forth the unseen, and to live in the fullness of your own creative power. You are never alone, for the source of all creation is within. You are never powerless, for the law responds to your recognition. You are never without authority, for the unseen honors only what you assume and feel as true. Let yourself rest in this state tonight, and every night, before sleep, feel the reality of your wish fulfilled. Let the currents of faith, imagination, and inner recognition move silently through the unseen, bending all things to the state you inhabit. This is the rhythm of creation, the law that governs all things, the secret whisper, scripture, and parable, and the sovereign act of consciousness that bends the universe to its command. To do it alone is not to be lonely. It is to be powerful beyond measure, to participate fully in the sacred act of creation, and to awaken to the truth that all things respond to the authority of your inner recognition, faithfully, inevitably, and perfectly. There is a subtle alchemy at work within you, a law so faithful, so precise, that it never errs, never hesitates, never wavers. It is the law of consciousness, the principle that what you assume as true becomes the world you behold. To dwell in this knowledge is to recognize that reality is not outside of you, that circumstance, event, and appearance are mere reflections, mirrors of the state you inhabit within. You may look around and see contradiction, lack, or delay, yet the unseen knows only one rule: that which is assumed as real in the depths of consciousness must be expressed in form. Imagine now a man who has long desired recognition, success, or abundance, yet appears alone, unnoticed, unacknowledged. In the quiet of his chamber, he imagines himself already celebrated, already prosperous, already fulfilled. He feels the joy, the excitement, the satisfaction of accomplishment. He hears the words of praise, the acknowledgement of his worth, the applause of those whose opinions once seemed essential. The outer world may offer no evidence, may remain indifferent, yet this does not diminish the inner reality. The state is maintained, the assumption is absolute, and the universe bends obediently to it, aligning all things to the inner certainty he holds in solitude. This is the rhythm of creation. The inner always precedes the outer, the unseen governs the seen, and the solitary act of assumption carries the power to transform all things. Consider the power of imagination as a tool, a laboratory, a sacred instrument by which all desires are made tangible. To imagine is not mere play, it is creation itself. When you engage the imagination fully, with every sense participating, every nuance alive, every detail complete, you are acting in the realm where all things exist prior to form. See, hear, touch, smell, feel, and taste the reality of your desire as though it were already present. Let it saturate your consciousness, fill every corner of your mind and body, until doubt is drowned in certainty, until hesitation is replaced by the unshakable knowing of accomplishment. The outer world will follow, for it is bound by law to the inner state you inhabit. You are never powerless, you are never alone, you are never without authority. The unseen is faithful, precise, and infinitely obedient to the recognition of consciousness. Inhabit the state fully, dwell there in solitude, and all things must bend to it. Faith, when coupled with imagination, becomes an unstoppable current. It moves silently, invisibly, yet powerfully, orchestrating circumstances, arranging events, aligning people, opening doors, and guiding outcomes toward the reality you hold within. It does not bargain, plead, or negotiate, it simply works. Every night, when the world grows quiet and the senses rest, this current flows most freely. You may sit alone, eyes closed, feeling the fullness of your desire, and the unseen moves to answer, arranging the outer to correspond with the inner. The world may appear contrary, it may seem to resist, yet resistance is illusion. The outer is only a mirror, delayed, silent, reflecting nothing more than what has already been assumed in consciousness. To dwell in the state of fulfillment, to feel it fully and completely, is to call forth reality itself, to sculpt circumstance with the authority of knowing, to command events with the quiet power of assumption. Even when appearances seem adverse, even when the outer delays, the law is constant. Imagine a man who desires wealth, recognition, or love, yet the streets, the offices, the marketplace appear barren of opportunity. Each evening, in the stillness of his room, he imagines himself as though all desires are already fulfilled. He feels the abundance, hears the acknowledgement, sees the celebration. Each night, he persists not because of what he sees outside, but because he knows the unseen is faithful. And in time, the outer world moves to reflect the inner certainty. A letter arrives, an encounter opens, fortune manifests without effort or struggle, all because the law is faithful to the assumption held in consciousness. You are capable of this, for the same principle operates within you. To do it alone is to claim the full authority of the law, to inhabit it without compromise, to recognize that your inner state determines all outer reality. The act of faith is more than hope. It is the absolute acceptance that what you desire exists now, even if the senses deny it. To act in faith is to feel, to know, to live in the state of your wish fulfilled. It is to ignore appearances, to disregard testimony, to rise above circumstance, and to dwell in certainty. When the mind is fully engaged in this state, the unseen moves with precision and inevitability. Your solitude is your power. Here, unimpeded by opinion, distraction, or interference, you assume the role of creator, architect, and witness. Every sensation you imagine, every nuance you inhabit, every detail you feel becomes the mold through which the outer world is shaped. The law requires only recognition, only assumption, only feeling. No external effort, no alliance, no negotiation is needed. To do it alone is to exercise the full potency of consciousness, to wield the unseen as if it were the very substance of the universe. Now, consider the inner river that flows beneath the surface of all events. Though invisible, its current shapes every mountain, carves every valley, nourishes all life. In the same way, your inner assumption flows silently, invisibly, yet powerfully, shaping all outer circumstances to match the state you hold. Every act of imagination, every sustained feeling, every assumption of fulfillment adds to the current, strengthens the flow, and compels the outer to conform. Even when nothing appears to happen, even when delay seems endless, the river moves inexorable, precise, faithful to the law. You are the master of this current, the one who sets its direction, the one who holds the authority. To act alone is to recognize this power, to inhabit it fully, and to trust the fidelity of the law without hesitation or doubt. The kingdom of reality exists within you, invisible to the senses, yet supremely potent. Every night, as the body rests and the world grows silent, you may enter the sacred chamber of imagination and feel the presence of your fulfilled desire. Hear the sounds, feel the warmth, perceive the colors, sense the textures, and allow the full experience to permeate your consciousness. This is not fantasy. It is creation itself, the forge upon which your world is shaped. To dwell here is to command the outer world, to bend circumstances, to call forth events without labor or petition. You are never alone, for the law of consciousness responds faithfully to your recognition. You are never powerless, for every feeling, every assumption, every act of imagination carries the authority of the unseen. The world may appear contrary, yet it is silent, obedient, and ever ready to reflect the reality already present within your consciousness. Imagine, if you will, a man whose life seemed barren, whose dreams appeared unattainable. He had no guide, no ally, no visible path, yet he assumed fully, nightly, the state of his wish fulfilled. He felt it, lived it, inhabited it alone in the quiet of his chamber. Over time, the outer world aligned, events conspired, opportunities presented themselves, and the reality he had imagined became manifest. This is the law in action. The inner precedes the outer, assumption creates circumstance, and solitude amplifies the authority of consciousness. You may do the same. You may inhabit fully, in quiet solitude, the state of your desire, and all things will bend obediently to the inner truth you hold. The unseen is faithful. It obeys no one but the consciousness that recognizes reality as already accomplished. Every act of assumption, every sustained feeling, every immersive visualization sets in motion currents that shape circumstance. The outer world is bound to reflect the inner it cannot resist. When you dwell in the state of fulfillment, when you feel it fully, richly, completely, the law moves with precision, arranging all things to correspond. Faith, imagination, assumption, and solitude are the instruments, the forge, the power, and the chamber through which the unseen manifests. You are the master, the architect, the creator, the witness. The law bends to the authority of your consciousness alone, and it is absolute, precise, and honoring. Every evening, in quiet reflection, you may enter this sacred chamber, assume the state of your fulfilled desire, and feel it as a living reality. Sense it in every fiber of your being, hear it in every echo of thought, see it in the theater of your imagination, feel it with the pulse of certainty, and know that the universe is in motion, arranging all things to correspond. This is the power of doing it alone, the recognition that your inner state is sufficient, that your assumption is absolute, that faith is the key, and that imagination is the instrument of creation. You do not wait, you do not plead, you do not bargain. You inhabit the reality fully, and the unseen moves with inexhaustible fidelity to bring the outer into alignment. Consider the rhythm, the cadence, the unbroken current of law at work. Every night, every quiet moment, every act of assumption, every sustained feeling builds the current, directs the flow, and compels the outer to match the inner. Your solitude is not isolation, it is empowerment. Your imagination is not idle, it is creation itself. Your faith is not hope, it is certainty. To do it alone is to step into the full authority of consciousness, to inhabit the sacred law, and to witness the outer world bend obediently to the reality you recognize inwardly. You are never powerless. You are never without support. You are never without authority. The unseen is faithful, and all things respond inevitably to the vibrational truth of your consciousness. Every night, when the world grows quiet and the senses relax, a portal opens within the mind, a sacred chamber where reality itself may be shaped. Here, the outer world no longer commands attention, its demands, its limitations, its evidence are silenced, leaving only the consciousness, the imagination, the feeling. You may sit alone, yet in that solitude lies the full authority of creation. Consider the law. It is faithful, precise, and honoring. It does not negotiate, it does not question, it does not hesitate. It responds only to recognition, to assumption, to the inner state you inhabit. To dwell in the state of your fulfilled desire is to command the unseen, to move currents that are invisible yet supremely potent, shaping every circumstance, arranging every event, and bending the outer world to reflect the inner reality. You are never powerless, never abandoned, never dependent. The inner chamber is sufficient, the imagination is sufficient, the recognition of fulfillment alone is sufficient, and the law of consciousness bends to your authority with honoring precision. Imagine now a man who desires love, companionship, or friendship. He looks upon the streets, the homes, the gatherings, and finds nothing corresponding to his desire. He is alone, yet he does not despair. Each evening, in the quiet of his chamber, he imagines the scene fully, living it as though it were already accomplished. He feels the warmth of recognition, the joy of companionship, the subtle nuances of shared laughter and mutual understanding. He hears the words spoken with affection and clarity, sees the gestures of attention, the glances of acknowledgement. Though the outer world offers no proof, he persists. And in time, as the law faithfully responds to the state he inhabits alone, the outer reflects the inner certainty. A meeting occurs, a conversation opens, a relationship manifests without effort or struggle. The outer world cannot resist the authority of the inner state, for the unseen is bound to conform to that which consciousness recognizes as real. Solitude, when embraced in this way, is not deprivation, it is empowerment. It is the sacred laboratory where all creation occurs, the crucible in which imagination, feeling, and faith converge to form reality. In this chamber, you are the sole actor and the sole witness. Every detail, every nuance, every subtlety of your assumed state is felt, seen, heard, and recognized. The world outside may contradict, it may delay, it may disguise, yet it cannot resist the inner authority. Every act of imagination is a current, every feeling is a pulse, and every assumption of fulfillment is a law moving silently through the unseen, compelling the outer to align. You need no ally, no teacher, no circumstance. The law is sufficient, and your recognition alone is absolute. Consider the rhythm of creation as a river flowing beneath the surface of life. Though invisible, its current carves mountains, nourishes valleys, and shapes the course of every stream. In the same way, your inner state, fully inhabited, moves silently, invisibly, yet powerfully, shaping all circumstances, arranging all events, aligning all people, opening doors, and bringing into form the reality you hold within. Each night, each moment of quiet reflection, each act of assumption sustained with feeling strengthens this current, directs it, and compels the outer world to obey. Even when nothing appears to happen, even when appearances seem contrary, the river flows inexorable, faithful, and precise. You are the master of this current, the conscious authority, the one who sets the direction, and the unseen bends without hesitation to the recognition of your consciousness. Faith is not a hope that seeks evidence. It is the quiet, unshakable recognition that the unseen is real, and that all things await only your acknowledgement to manifest. When you dwell in faith, fully and completely, you inhabit the state of fulfillment as though it were tangible. You feel it in your body, sense it in your mind, perceive it in every nuance, and hear it in every echo of thought. The outer world becomes an obedient reflection of this inner reality. Every opportunity, every meeting, every arrangement is drawn toward you as naturally as the tides respond to the moon. Faith, imagination, and assumption, when sustained in solitude, form an invisible triad of power that no circumstance can resist, no delay can hinder, and no contradiction can deny. You are never powerless. You are never without influence. You are never abandoned. The unseen moves precisely, faithfully, inevitably in response to your recognition. Now, allow the imagination to expand further, to become rich, vivid, and compelling. Envision the scene of your fulfilled desire in every detail. See the environment, hear the voices, feel the textures, sense the warmth, smell the fragrances, taste the subtle nuances of reality as you would if it were already accomplished. Let the inner vision saturate your consciousness until it is no longer a scene observed from the outside, but a world inhabited fully from within. The senses participate, the feelings flow, and the knowing becomes complete. You are alone, yet in this solitude, you exercise the full authority of creation. The law honors only what is assumed, only what is felt, only what is known as real. To inhabit this state is to summon reality itself, to call forth the unseen, and to watch the world obediently conform. Consider a man who desires wealth, yet sees the streets barren, the marketplace silent, the opportunities absent. He has no ally, no visible aid, no assurance from the world. Each night, in the quiet, he imagines himself as wealthy, fulfilled, and prosperous. He feels the weight of gold, the warmth of abundance, the satisfaction of success. He hears the acknowledgement, perceives the recognition, imagines the letters, the greetings, the signs of arrival. Though the outer world offers no proof, he persists, sustaining the inner state alone. And inevitably, the law responds, circumstances align, events conspire, opportunities manifest, and the world reflects the inner certainty he has maintained in solitude. This is the rhythm of creation. The inner state precedes the outer, the unseen governs the seen, and the solitary recognition of reality is sufficient to call forth all things. Every night, as the body rests and the senses grow still, you may enter this sacred chamber of consciousness. Here, imagination becomes creation, feeling becomes law, and assumption becomes the medium through which the universe bends. You are never powerless. You are never without influence. You are never alone. The law of consciousness responds only to recognition, and your recognition alone is absolute. Every act of assumption, every sustained feeling, every immersive vision sets in motion currents that shape all outer circumstances. The world becomes a mirror, faithfully reflecting the reality you inhabit within. Solitude is not emptiness, it is empowerment. Imagination is not play, it is creation. Faith is not hope, it is certainty. You are the master, the architect, the creator, and the witness. Let the currents of your inner life flow freely, unchecked, uninhibited, and fully alive. Every assumption, every act of imagination, every sustained feeling adds strength to the invisible river that moves all things into alignment with the state you inhabit. Even when the outer world appears contrary, even when appearances seem resistant, the law is faithful. The river flows. The currents move. The unseen bends to your authority. You are never without influence. You are never powerless. You are alone, yet infinitely potent. Every night, in quiet reflection, you may inhabit the state of your fulfilled desire fully, richly, and completely, knowing that the outer world is compelled to conform. This is the power of doing it alone, the sovereign authority of consciousness, the fidelity of the law, the absolute sufficiency of imagination, feeling, and assumption to bring all things into manifestation. Even as you rest in this state, every sense fully engaged, every nuance vivid, every feeling alive, the law moves silently, invisibly, yet unerringly. Opportunities present themselves, encounters unfold, doors open, and circumstances align. The outer world becomes a faithful reflection of the inner reality. You are never powerless. You are never abandoned. You are never without authority. The law is faithful, precise, and inexorable. Solitude is your laboratory, imagination your instrument, assumption your power, and faith your medium. You do it alone, yet with all creation bending obediently to your recognition, reflecting the state you hold within, faithfully, inevitably, perfectly. The unseen is never idle, it moves in perfect accordance with the state you inhabit within. Every assumption, every act of imagination, every sustained feeling is a current that flows silently yet powerfully, shaping the outer world to mirror the inner reality. You are the center, the origin, the authority, and the law responds only to the recognition of what is true in consciousness. There is no need for evidence, no demand for proof, no appeal to circumstance. The unseen is faithful, precise, and infinitely obedient. To dwell fully in the state of your desire fulfilled is to command the universe without effort, to arrange all events in perfect harmony with the inner reality, and to witness the manifestation of what was already true in the silent depths of your mind. Imagine a man who desires recognition, honor, or influence. The world appears indifferent, opportunity scarce, acknowledgement absent. Yet each night, He sits alone in the quiet of his chamber and imagines himself celebrated, respected, and accomplished. He feels the warmth of approval, hears the voice of praise, senses the attention of those whose opinions once seemed essential. Though the outer may deny it, he persists, and in time, the unseen moves, orchestrates, and brings the evidence into form. This is the rhythm of creation. The inner state must be recognized, and the outer cannot resist its expression. Faith is the silent pulse that drives all manifestation. It is not hope, for hope waits and wonders. It is the unshakable knowing that what is assumed as real exists now, hidden in the unseen, waiting only for acknowledgement. To act in faith is to enter the state of fulfillment fully, to feel it, to know it, to live it inwardly without reliance on external confirmation. The outer world may appear contrary, yet it cannot withstand the vibrational authority of consciousness fully engaged in its inner reality. Every night, as the body rests and the sense is quiet, you may enter this sacred chamber, closing the door to distraction, and feel the reality of your wish fulfilled. See it vividly, hear it clearly, touch it, taste it, and feel it as though it were tangible. Immerse yourself fully, allowing the sensation of accomplishment to saturate every fiber of your being. The outer world may remain silent, yet the currents of the unseen move inexorably, aligning all circumstances to reflect the inner state. Solitude is not deprivation, it is empowerment, the fertile ground in which all creation occurs. Imagination is the instrument, the sacred forge of all reality. When engaged fully, it becomes more than vision, it becomes creation. To imagine is not idle fancy, it is the act through which the unseen is made manifest. Let your imagination participate completely, see the environment, hear the voices, feel the textures, sense the warmth, smell the fragrances, taste the subtleties of reality as if it already exists. The more vivid, the more sensory, the more real it feels inwardly, the more inevitable its expression outwardly. The unseen obeys only the recognition, the assumption, and the feeling of fulfillment. It does not question, it does not delay beyond what is required to reflect the inner certainty. It does not deny. To dwell in the state of your wish fulfilled is to summon reality itself, to command the currents of circumstance, and to shape the world with quiet authority. Consider a man who desires wealth, yet observes scarcity, delays, and apparent obstacles. Each evening in solitude, he imagines himself as prosperous, abundant, and fulfilled. He feels the satisfaction, the security, the acknowledgement, and the joy of having already achieved it. He sees the abundance, hears the voices of approval, senses the weight of possessions, the warmth of success, and the recognition of others. Though the outer world seems silent, unyielding, or indifferent, he persists in this inner reality. Eventually, the outer must yield, for it is bound by law to the inner state. Circumstances align, opportunities appear, relationships converge, and the evidence manifests without struggle, for the law of consciousness bends all things to the authority of recognition. This is the rhythm of creation. What is assumed inwardly cannot fail to appear outwardly. The power of solitude is profound. Alone, you are free from contradiction, distraction, and the conflicting opinions of others. In this quiet, uninterrupted space, the law responds with totality. Every act of imagination, every sustained feeling, every assumption of fulfillment becomes a current in the unseen, shaping events, aligning circumstances, and moving the outer world to correspond perfectly. You are the master, the architect, the creator, and the witness. The outer world is simply a reflection, a mirror of the inner state. To do it alone is to exercise full authority over reality, to inhabit the law without compromise, and to allow the unseen to operate with precision, faithfulness, and inevitability. The unseen operates without hesitation. It is faithful to the recognition of consciousness alone. Every act of imagination, every sustained feeling, every assumption of the fulfilled state moves currents that shape all outer circumstances. You may sit quietly, feeling the reality of your desire in every sense, and the universe moves obediently, arranging events, orchestrating opportunities, and bending the world to reflect what is already true inwardly. Even when the outer appears contrary, even when delay seems endless, the law is faithful. The currents move silently, inexorably, guided by the inner state you maintain. Your solitude amplifies the power, focus, and precision of this recognition. Imagination, faith, and assumption combine to create the reality you inhabit inwardly, and the outer world responds inevitably. Every night, in quiet reflection, you may enter this chamber of consciousness and assume the state of your wish fulfilled. Feel it fully, richly, completely. Let the sensations saturate your being. See the scenes, hear the voices, touch the textures, smell the fragrances, taste the subtle nuances. Let every detail be alive, and let the feeling of accomplishment, satisfaction, and joy permeate every fiber of your being. The law responds to this recognition, bending the outer to match the inner. Opportunities present themselves, circumstances align, doors open, and evidence manifests without effort. You are never powerless, never abandoned, never without authority. The law of consciousness honors only what is assumed, only what is fully recognized, and only what is felt as real. Imagine, if you will, a man whose life seems barren, whose desires appear unattainable. He has no visible path, no ally, no teacher, yet he assumes fully each night the state of his desire fulfilled. He feels it, he lives it, he inhabits it alone. And in time, the outer world reflects the inner certainty he has sustained. Circumstances align, people respond, events conspire, and reality mirrors the inner state. This is the law in action. The inner always precedes the outer, the unseen governs the seen, and the solitary recognition of truth is sufficient to bring all things into manifestation. You may do the same, for the law is constant, faithful, and infinitely responsive to the authority of consciousness. The kingdom of reality exists within you. It is silent, invisible, yet infinitely potent. Every night, as the senses rest and the outer world grows still, you may enter this sacred chamber, inhabiting the state of your desire fulfilled. Every detail, every nuance, every sensation, every feeling participates fully, and the currents of the unseen move with perfect obedience to the authority of your inner recognition. Solitude is the crucible of creation, imagination is the instrument, faith is the medium, and assumption is the law through which all things manifest. You are never powerless. You are never abandoned. You are never without authority. The law bends faithfully, inevitably, and perfectly to the state you inhabit within. Let the currents of your inner world flow freely, uninhibited, and fully alive. Every act of imagination, every sustained feeling, every assumption of fulfillment strengthens the invisible river that moves all things into alignment with the state you hold. Even when the outer world appears contrary, even when appearances seem resistant, the law is faithful. The currents move, the unseen bends, and reality conforms to the authority of your consciousness. Solitude is not emptiness, it is empowerment. Imagination is not play, it is creation. Faith is not hope, it is certainty. You are the master, the architect, the creator, and the witness. Every night, in quiet reflection, you may inhabit the state of your fulfilled desire, knowing that the outer world is compelled to conform. This is the power, the rhythm, the absolute sufficiency of doing it alone. The law of consciousness is silent yet absolute, invisible yet unerringly precise. It operates without hesitation, without delay, without deviation. Every thought, every feeling, every assumption, every moment of imagination creates currents in the unseen that shape and govern the outer world. There is no need for evidence, no demand for proof, no reliance upon circumstance. The unseen responds only to recognition, to assumption, to the state you inhabit within. When you dwell fully in the state of your fulfilled desire, when you feel it as real, tangible, and alive in every fiber of your being, the outer world must conform. It cannot resist. It is bound by law, obedient to the authority of consciousness, and moves silently, invisibly, yet inexorably, to reflect the inner reality. You are never powerless. You are never abandoned. You are never without influence. Solitude is your laboratory, your sanctuary, your sacred chamber in which all creation occurs. Every night, in quiet reflection, you may enter this chamber and assume the state of your desire fulfilled, feeling it richly, fully, and completely, knowing that the universe bends obediently to the recognition you hold. Imagine a man who desires love, companionship, or deep understanding. He looks upon the world and sees no evidence, no opportunity, no reflection of his desire. Yet in solitude, he sits quietly and imagines the reality he wishes to experience. He feels the warmth of recognition, the joy of mutual appreciation, the subtle, silent acknowledgement of connection. He hears the voices, perceives the glances, senses the vibrations of acceptance and intimacy, and lives within this state as though it already exists. The outer world may contradict, may delay, may seem indifferent, yet the unseen moves with absolute fidelity to the inner state he maintains. Circumstances align, encounters unfold, relationships manifest, and the world reflects the inner certainty of fulfillment. This is the law in action. The inner precedes the outer, and the solitary recognition of truth is sufficient to call forth all things. Faith is not hope. It is not a wishful thought. It is a living recognition that what is assumed as real exists now in the unseen, invisible to the senses, but fully potent. When you act in faith, you inhabit the state of your desire fulfilled with the authority of knowing. You do not wait, you do not plead, you do not appeal to circumstance. You feel, you recognize, you dwell fully in the reality you wish to experience. The outer world may appear contrary, but it cannot resist the vibrational authority of a consciousness fully engaged in its inner truth. Every night, every quiet moment, every act of imagination becomes a current in the unseen, arranging all things to conform to the state you inhabit. You are never powerless. You are never abandoned. You are the master, the architect, the creator, the witness. The unseen bends obediently, inevitably, and perfectly to the authority you hold within. Imagination is the sacred forge through which all reality is formed. It is not idle fantasy, it is creation itself. When you imagine fully, with every sense alive and participating, when you feel, see, hear, taste, touch, and inhabit every nuance, you are shaping the unseen, directing the currents that will move the outer world into alignment with your inner recognition. The more vivid, more detailed, more sensory the imagination, the more inevitable the expression outwardly. To dwell fully in the inner reality is to call forth the outer, to command circumstance, to orchestrate events, and to shape the world without labor or petition. Solitude is not deprivation, it is empowerment. In the quiet of your chamber, in the stillness of your mind, you hold the power of creation in your hands. Every act of assumption, every sustained feeling, every immersive scene is a pulse in the unseen, a current that shapes reality to reflect the state you inhabit. Consider a man who desires wealth, recognition, or achievement. The streets appear barren, the marketplace silent, the opportunities absent. He has no visible ally, no teacher, no guide. Each night he closes his eyes and assumes fully the state of his fulfilled desire. He imagines the richness, the acknowledgement, the proof of accomplishment. He feels it in every cell of his being. He hears it in every echo of thought. He sees it in every detail. He senses it as though tangible. Though the outer world denies evidence, he persists, sustaining the inner reality alone. And inevitably the law moves. Circumstances align, opportunities appear, relationships converge, and the evidence manifests. The unseen is faithful, precise, and unerring. The outer world is compelled to reflect the inner state, and the solitary act of assumption brings forth reality itself. Every night, as the senses grow still, and the world outside quiets, you may enter the sacred chamber of your consciousness. Here, imagination becomes creation, feeling becomes law, and assumption becomes the medium through which the universe bends. You are never powerless. You are never abandoned. You are never without authority. The law responds only to the recognition of consciousness, and your recognition alone is sufficient. Every act of imagination, every sustained feeling, every assumption of fulfillment creates currents that shape all outer circumstances. The world becomes a mirror, faithfully reflecting the reality you inhabit within. Solitude is power, imagination is creation, faith is certainty. You are the master, the architect, the creator, and the witness. Even when the outer world appears resistant, even when circumstances seem contrary, the law is faithful. The currents move silently, invisibly, inexorably, guided by the state you maintain. Your solitude amplifies your power, your focus, and your authority. Imagination, faith, and assumption converge to create a vibrational reality that cannot fail to express itself outwardly. Every night, in quiet reflection, you may inhabit the state of your wish fulfilled. Feel it fully, richly, completely. Let the sensations saturate your being. See, hear, touch, taste, sense the reality as though tangible. The law responds to this recognition, and the outer world moves in perfect alignment. Opportunities present themselves, encounters unfold, circumstances align, and evidence manifests effortlessly. You are never powerless. You are never abandoned. You are never without authority. Consider a man whose desires appear impossible, whose circumstances seem barren, whose path seems blocked. He has no visible means, no teacher, no assurance. Yet he assumes fully, nightly, the state of his desire fulfilled. He feels it, inhabits it, and sustains it alone. In time, the outer world responds. Circumstances shift, events converge, relationships appear, and reality mirrors the inner certainty he has maintained. This is the principle of creation. The inner state governs the outer, and the solitary recognition of fulfillment is sufficient to manifest all things. You may do the same, for the law is constant, faithful, and infinitely responsive to the authority of consciousness. The currents of your inner life are unstoppable when fully engaged. Every act of imagination, every feeling, every assumption adds strength, direction, and potency to the invisible river that shapes reality. Even when the outer world appears contrary, the law is faithful. The currents move, the unseen bends, and the world conforms to the authority of your consciousness. Solitude is the crucible in which all creation occurs. Imagination is the instrument, faith is the medium, and assumption is the law. You do it alone, yet all creation bends obediently to your recognition. You are never powerless, never abandoned, never without authority. The law is precise, faithful, and unerring, and the outer world must reflect the inner state you inhabit fully. Every night, in quiet reflection, you may enter this chamber of consciousness and assume the state of your wish fulfilled. Feel it fully, richly, completely. Let every sensation saturate your being. Let every detail, every nuance, every subtlety of experience become alive within you. The law responds to your recognition. Circumstances align, opportunities manifest, events converge, and reality conforms to the inner state you hold. Solitude is not emptiness, it is empowerment. Imagination is not play, it is creation. Faith is not hope, it is certainty. You are the master, the architect, the creator, and the witness. The unseen bends to the authority of your consciousness, faithfully, inevitably, perfectly, and all things are compelled to reflect the reality you inhabit inwardly. The final act of creation is not found in struggle, in pleading, or in labor. It is found in the quiet, sovereign recognition that what you have imagined, felt, and assumed already exists. The unseen bends effortlessly to the authority of consciousness, fully engaged to the state you inhabit alone in the silent chamber of your mind. Every sensation, every nuance, every detail of your fulfilled desire, when fully inhabited, sets in motion currents that move with perfect fidelity to bring the outer into harmony with the inner. You are never powerless. You are never abandoned. You are never dependent on circumstance. The world outside is a mirror, reflecting the inner state you maintain, and the law obeys only the recognition of fulfillment. Each night, in quiet reflection, you may close your eyes, enter this sacred chamber, and allow the unseen to operate with complete obedience to your consciousness. Every act of assumption, every sustained feeling, Every vivid scene becomes a pulse in the unseen, shaping the circumstances, arranging the events, and orchestrating the manifestations that bring the outer world into perfect alignment with what you already know to be true. Imagine now the scene of your fulfilled desire in every exquisite detail. Sense the textures, hear the voices, feel the warmth, smell the fragrances, taste the subtleties of life as it would exist if your wish were already accomplished. Let the imagination become so real, so vibrant, so compelling that it saturates every part of your being. Let every thought, every sensation, every emotion be fully alive, and feel the authority of this recognition as it reverberates through your consciousness. The outer world cannot resist the state you inhabit inwardly. It is bound to it by law, invisible, silent, and unerring. Even if appearances seem contrary, even if delay seems endless, the currents of the unseen move precisely, inexorably, inevitably, and align all circumstances to the inner reality you hold. This is the law of consciousness in action, and solitude is the supreme instrument of its power. Alone, yet infinitely potent, you summon reality itself by the authority of recognition. Faith is the medium through which all things are drawn into manifestation. It is not hope, for hope is uncertain and waits for evidence. Faith is certainty unshakable, complete, and unwavering. To act in faith is to enter the state of fulfillment fully and to dwell there with authority. The outer world may deny, may contradict, may appear indifferent, yet it cannot resist the vibrational power of a consciousness fully absorbed in its inner reality. Each night, as the body rests and the senses quiet, you may assume this state completely, immersing yourself in every detail of the desired scene. Feel it, hear it, see it, sense it, live it. Let the currents of the unseen respond to the authority you hold within, moving events, aligning circumstances, opening doors, and bringing evidence into form. You are never powerless. You are never abandoned. You are never without authority. Imagination is creation itself. When fully engaged, it is more than vision, it is law in action. Let every sense participate. Let the scenes become alive, vibrant, and real in the mind's eye. Feel the textures, the warmth, the resonance of accomplishment. Hear the voices, the recognition, the affirmations that accompany the reality you have assumed. See every detail, every nuance, every subtlety that completes the scene of fulfillment. Let the sensations saturate your being. This is the instrument through which the unseen moves, through which the law operates, and through which the outer world becomes compelled to reflect the inner state. The power of solitude amplifies this effect, for there are no contradictory influences, no distractions, no external opinions to dilute the currents of recognition. Alone, fully immersed, and fully engaged, you wield the authority of creation with precision, fidelity, and inevitability. Consider the man who desires influence, recognition, or success. Outwardly, he sees no evidence, no opportunity, no validation. Yet in the quiet of his mind, in the solitude of his chamber, he assumes fully the state of fulfillment. He feels the recognition, hears the acknowledgement, senses the respect, and inhabits the state completely. Though the outer world may seem silent, indifferent, or contrary, the unseen moves inexorably. Circumstances align, opportunities appear, relationships converge, and the evidence manifests. The law of consciousness honors only the state you assume, the reality you recognize, and the fullness with which you inhabit it. To dwell in this state, alone, with authority, is to move the outer world effortlessly, without struggle, without delay, without doubt. Every night as the world sleeps, you may enter this sacred chamber and feel the fulfillment of your desire in every detail. Let every sense participate, let every nuance saturate your consciousness, and feel the certainty of its reality. The unseen, obedient to your recognition, moves to align all circumstances with your inner state. Opportunities arise, events converge, doors open, and evidence manifests without resistance. You are never powerless. You are never abandoned. You are never without authority. Solitude is the instrument of mastery. Imagination is the medium of creation. faith is the law, and assumption is the channel through which all things manifest. To do it alone is to hold the sovereign power of consciousness in your hands, commanding the unseen, shaping reality, and calling forth all that you have assumed as true. Let the currents of your inner reality flow freely, uninhibited, fully alive. Every act of imagination, every sustained feeling, every assumption of fulfillment strengthens the invisible river that moves all things into alignment with the state you hold. Even when the outer world appears contrary, the law is faithful. The unseen bends, the currents move, and the world reflects the inner state you inhabit. Imagination is not idle, it is creation. Faith is not hope, it is certainty. Solitude is not emptiness, it is empowerment. You are the master, the architect, the creator, and the witness. Every night, in quiet reflection, you may inhabit the state of your fulfilled desire, knowing that the outer world is compelled to conform. The power is absolute, the law is precise, the currents are faithful, and all things move in accordance with the authority of consciousness fully engaged. Every act of assumption, every sustained feeling, every vivid inner scene becomes a pulse in the unseen, a current that shapes events, arranges circumstances, orchestrates encounters, and brings evidence into form. You are never powerless. You are never abandoned. You are never without authority. The outer world reflects the inner reality you inhabit, and the law bends, faithfully and inevitably, to the recognition of your consciousness. Solitude is the crucible of creation, imagination the instrument, faith the medium, and assumption the law. To do it alone is to wield this authority perfectly, moving the unseen, commanding reality, and calling forth all that you have assumed as fulfilled. Even as the body rests, the mind quiets, and the senses grow still, the currents of consciousness continue to operate. The scenes you have imagined, the feelings you have sustained, the assumption you have inhabited move silently, invisibly, and inexorably to shape the outer world. Circumstances align, opportunities appear, events converge, and reality mirrors the state you hold within. You are never powerless. You are never abandoned. You are never without authority. The law is precise, faithful, and unerring, responding only to the recognition of fulfillment, to the act of imagination fully inhabited, and to the certainty of faith. The final principle is the absolute sufficiency of doing it alone. No teacher, no ally, no circumstance, no proof, no assistance from the outside is required. The law responds to consciousness alone. The state you inhabit, the recognition you hold, the feeling you sustain are sufficient to bring all things into manifestation. Solitude is not deprivation, it is sovereignty. Imagination is not play, it is creation. Faith is not hope, it is certainty. You are the master, the architect, the creator, and the witness. The law bends, the unseen moves, and the world obeys the authority of consciousness fully engaged. Every night, in quiet reflection, you may enter the sacred chamber, assume the state of your wish fulfilled, and witness the currents of reality aligning with the inner state. The power is absolute, the law is faithful, the currents are inexorable, and all things move in accordance with the recognition of your consciousness.